Welcome to the new episode of Building the Open Web. This is Sasha and Matt from Near, and today we have our guest Robin Schmidt. Hi, Robin.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
For sure. So maybe we can start with like a couple sentences on what you're up to.
So I am the head of video multimedia at the Defiant, which is a DeFi newsletter and building into a Web3 media company, specifically talking about DeFi, but aiming to be the Bloomberg of decentralized finance. And I guess in the future, we'll just call decentralized finance, but there's a need for better information. There's a need for better news coverage. And I think it's pretty fair to say that journalism in crypto has been patchy on the whole. And so we're trying to push a standard of journalism. Camilla Russo, who runs the Defiant, is a former Bloomberg journalist. And of course, acknowledging the fact that blockchain crypto it's a fun space. It's a space full of stories, and to respect that and not try and treat it like traditional media or traditional financial media, and find that new happy place where we can tell the stories the way they want to be told. So that's my mission at the moment. I spend a lot of time in front of the camera. I do YouTube videos, and we're actively exploring how to combine Web3 media with tokenized access, with NFTs, with pretty much everything that the space can do. So we're not just reporting on things. We're actually being builders and gatekeepers and participants in the economies that we create as well. So it's a very exciting time, for sure.
And where did you grow up? How did you get interested in multimedia, and how did you make your way into crypto?
Well, I grew up in the dreaming spires of Oxford. My father was an Oxford English professor. I was surrounded by academia, and I was surrounded by music. So I grew up playing classical music, singing in choirs. I sang for the Pope when I was 11 years old. And so I had this very creative upbringing at a very high standard. And by the time I was 17, I was done with it. And I was trying to find a place where all of that creative energy that I had previously could find an outlet. And I just loved films. So I decided I was just going to start doing that. And so for 20 years, I kind of worked my way up through the ranks of video production. And I did everything from music videos, extreme sports films, TV, and then into TV commercials. I even directed a feature film. And then after a while, you kind of reach this point where that life and the demands it places on you are pretty much incompatible with having a family. And I started a family, I had two young kids, and it just became impossible to continue working the way I was working. So something had to give. And so I found my way to Holland because my wife is Dutch. And Holland is overwhelmingly mad for blockchain and crypto. So it was only a matter of time before my path intersected with somebody who was an early investor in Ethereum. And he told me about this cryptocurrency that he bought that was just kept going up and up and up. And I was like, you know what? The thing that's getting in the way of me doing the things that I really want to do, that I really enjoy, is money. It always comes down to how do you get funded? How do you get enough money to do something? And I often compare developers and filmmakers because they're visionaries. They love the music of what they do. There is a creativity to code, and obviously there's a creativity to filmmaking. The difference is developers are extremely well paid, filmmakers are not. And so we always bump up against this money problem. So for me, trying to solve money seemed to be a gateway to some kind of freedom to pursue creative ideas. And of course, financial freedom comes with that. But what happened was, of course, I started trading shitcoins and was like, wow, this is fun. This is 2017. I could do no wrong. I was a genius. I was the best trader the world had ever seen. And, I got really excited about it. But as you figure your way down the rabbit hole, you start to become a better researcher, a better intelligence gatherer, and start to really understand what it is that you're playing with from a philosophical perspective, from a future work perspective. And then for me, it became a question of, I'm a filmmaker. There are huge problems in my world, in my business. Maybe blockchain can solve them. And then, of course, you go through this period of like, it can solve everything. It's the most amazing thing ever. And then you get past that and you go, well, maybe there are a few things that it can solve. And maybe there's a few ideas here. And I just kind of got hooked, And I realized that the life I'd been living, which was making soulless commercials for coffee machines and for, feminine hygiene products. I mean, trust me, I've done everything. I've done a TV commercial for a product that helps you reduce the amount of intestinal gas that you have. I mean, I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you're the guy that did that. And I hate it. I'm like, oh, no, this is where it ends. So I stopped. I decided I was going to pursue a career in blockchain and crypto somehow. And the thing that got me really excited was that this whole space is driven by memes, right? It's like memes decide the success or failure of everything. And a meme is just a unit of storytelling. And so, if coming from where I came from, I figured if I could crack that code and understand how you can tell stories in crypto, there might be a place for me here. And fortunately, I managed to persuade Harmony to take me on in that capacity. And I spent a very interesting and exciting roller coaster of a year working for Harmony, trying to figure out how you get past market dynamics to keep telling a good story. And it's very, very difficult. Like when the market turns against you, you're always fighting a rearguard action. You're always in a defensive posture. Whereas what you want to be doing is, promoting a platform for developers to come and build on. You want to be promoting a place for a community to cluster around. But the first thing that anybody wants to ask you is, why is the token price falling? What's happened? What's gone wrong? And it's like, it just gets exhausting after a while. So you're always taking one step forward and then three steps back. Off the back of that, I then started talking to Camilla Russo from the Defiant because we'd hooked up and done an interview in New York the back end of 2019. Got on really well. And I just said, you're doing these incredible stories about DeFi. I make videos and I have all this equipment and technology and I can make these stories look great. And she said, yeah, let's do it. So the thing that I managed to do was I took the background I had in filmmaking and making TV commercials and all this production value that I've leaned on for so long, and I sort of invested that into the content I was trying to make about crypto. So instead of it just being me in front of a laptop saying this token price is going up, this token price is going down, I really lent into the craziness of the stories. When you talk about the launch of Curve and that token, it's bananas. You cannot just treat it like a normal financial story. So I really lent into that and allowed myself to go with the craziness of it and use every technique at my disposal, whether it was talking about things, doing comedy sketches or doing a whole episode where we made it into an 80s B movie. Just any different style or technique I could use. I mean, Matt, I don't know if you saw the video. I did the whole thing in hip hop. I rapped the whole video. It was like, it just felt like the right way to do it. And in no other time in my life have I had that much freedom to go and pursue a story in whatever form or shape I want to pursue it in. And I think that's, for me, the greatest appeal of this space right now is it's so new and it's so young. There are no rules yet. And you see that reflected in the way that teams just, spool up an entire protocol in a weekend and then suddenly it's worth $100 million. You go, wow, this is amazing. And it's that relentless creativity and relentless burning down and then renewing that is so exciting. And there's so many lessons to be learned there for the creative industries as a whole. Yeah, in which development cycles are like 2-3 years. I mean, that's just way too long. So it's a very long answer to say, I used to make extreme sports films and now I make YouTube videos. The end.
That's awesome. Thank you for such a in-depth answer. How do you approach also creative process, for every single piece of content?
Good question. If I relate back to pitching on music videos, like a brief would come in and it would say, you've got 25 grand, here's the song, and we need, a performance video, or we need something with a storyline. And then you'd sit there and you just kill yourself trying to come up with an idea. You get drunk, or you go for a bike ride, or you try and distract yourself from the normal process of coming up with ideas. Because particularly with music videos, I'd be pitching like 3 or 4 a week. And that's a lot. So you tend to start coming up with the same ideas all the time. It's very difficult to bust yourself out of that. And with the YouTube schedule, it's exactly the same. It's like we're doing new videos every single week. So you're like, how do I keep coming up with a new, fresh idea every single week? And the process is really simple. I don't, if I have an idea, I don't go and look at where that ideas come from. So let's say I have an idea that I want to do an 80s video, and I want to do like a B movie 80s thing. I will not go and watch any 80s B movies. I'll just rely on what I remember from 80s B movies, and then just trust that that thing that I do will be cool. Because if I start looking at 80s B movies, I will start to try and copy them, and I don't want to do that. I want to make the thing that I'm doing about the story I'm telling, but seen through a filter of other stuff. And generally, what happens is this: there's just one little idea that becomes the spine of the entire process. So, for instance, I was doing a video about algorithmic stablecoins, and when you think about algorithmic stablecoins, the one word that stands out is elastic. And elastic is an elastic band; it can be a balloon. But for me, when I hear the word elastic, I think of underwear, of knicker elastic. That's what I have in my mind. So I just decided I was going to frame the entire episode around underwear. And the thing about that is, if you start exploring that idea, it was like, well, stablecoins they're about safety, they're about making you feel secure, they're about creating an easy route in for people. And underwear is like that. It makes you feel secure. It's the most intimate garment that you have. So this metaphor for stablecoins becomes clear. And then you can do all sorts of fun things with it, like, algorithmic stablecoins are quite naughty, so I made them a thong. And like, the wonderful thing about that is, most of what we talk about is not visual. It's just code, it's ideas, it's thinking. And so when you're making videos, you have nothing to work with. You're just doing screen grabs of websites. So anything I can do where I can make it visual, where I can take a thing and illustrate it in a visual way, is always good. So that's literally all I do. I just think about what is the visual that I can then use and riff on all the way through a video. And it's usually just one thing. Could be a pineapple, could be, I want to do Kung Fury this week, or it could be just rap. Let's wrap it. So it's usually that, just one simple idea, and then take that and expand it.
Before we jump into the Defiant in too much detail and kind of what they're all about, I want you to maybe tell us about some other crypto experiments you've done in the past. And of course, I have to also ask about the rug pull. But if you have some older experiments or just some other sort of fun stuff you've done in crypto, and you just want to talk about it, then I would love to hear about it.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting story, because the experience I had in 2017 was very much never traded before, and I came through a place where, if you work in broadcast, particularly, you have to be quite a good researcher, and you have to know how to do like decent levels of research, because like the BBC will fact check you to death. So if your facts are wrong, you just won't get put on TV. So I realized I had a skill set that was quite useful there, and then I started kind of banding together with other people to get into pre-sales and to get into private sales, because that was the game, and that was the best way to insulate yourself from the unfairness of other market movements. We were talking about whales back then and how they move the market. You always feel like a minnow, but by grouping together and using the power of the group, you could compete on some level, and it was very successful. So that was kind of my first crypto kind of entrepreneurship, I guess. Then I think the biggest thing I did was I just identified this opportunity to tell stories. Because basically what had happened was, in 2017, like every Tom, Dick, and Harry was ICOing. And of course, with the ICO came this whole package: the team, the video, and then the website. And the videos were routinely dog shit. It was always, in a world where centralization has ruined us, Facebook, Google, now think about supply chains, logistics, and how we can disrupt this process. Like, come on. And with some rubbish animation. It's just like, it felt like there was an opportunity there to do much better storytelling. So I took it upon myself to pitch something to Harmony. And why Harmony? Well, it's just because I'd been connected into their seed sale, and honestly, I was just looking to help make them a success at that point. And then, as Matt rightly pointed out, the project that kind of got me most attention last year was the rug pull, which was, I got very interested in NFT art, because it seemed like there was a huge movement towards the space that I'm most interested in, which is creative arts. As healthy or not as it might be, but at least there was going to be some heat in this space, and it would bring more artists in, and there would be more money, and hopefully that would trickle down towards film and other things. But what I was really interested in was, how would I fit into this space? How could I add something to this emerging, interesting world? Because I'm not an artist, but I do things that can be considered art. So I came up with a very unique NFT experience that was narrative driven. And basically, it was 12 NFTs, one of which was hiding a Bitcoin, but you didn't know which one it was. And we would auction off these NFTs as a collection. They were, an original piece of art. But at any moment, you could look inside your NFT and discover whether it had a Bitcoin or not. But if all of these NFTs are displayed on a public website, so the moment you look inside, it will be displayed whether you had looked inside. And if you'd failed, then your NFT would be flipped to a new status, which was wrecked. However, if the person who had the Bitcoin inside looked inside, then it would instantly render all the others wrecked. So it was this kind of game theory mechanics built in. And what I was trying to do was replicate this feeling of uncertainty and fear that you get when investing in a DeFi protocol, that you might get rug pulled. And so the idea was that at any moment, any one of the other people in the experiment could rug pull you. What happened, annoyingly enough, is that someone dug into the bytecode, figured out what was going on, and then wrote a smart contract specifically to trap the NFT into giving up the Bitcoin. And everyone got rug pulled. So it did exactly what it was supposed to do, just not in the way we intended. So could be a failed experiment or not, but that was probably the most advanced attempt I'd put together of actually creating my own work for blockchain and putting it out there and selling it. But we have more things that we want to do.
Just to be clear for the listeners, Robin, somebody figured out a way to determine which NFT had the Bitcoin, but without revealing it.
Well, okay, so Sasha will know more about this than I do, and so would you. But random number generation is quite difficult to do, particularly on Ethereum, and obfuscation of that is very, very difficult to do. So the way that the developers had engineered it was that at the moment of sale, no NFT had been in fact allocated to Bitcoin. It was only the moment the first one was opened that the NFT would in fact be allocated to one of the 12. And I hesitate to call it a hacker, but it's basically he had to buy one of the NFTs, which he did for about $13,000, I think, which is not nothing. And he then figured out how to trick the code into assigning him as the winner. And then he withdrew the Bitcoin, and then he actually sold the NFT on for 1.2 ETH or something. So he made money, but he had to spend money to get there, and it wasn't easy. But it just goes to show how, as clever as you think you are, out there is someone who is determined to be more clever and knows more than you do about one specific thing that you probably overlooked, and that is just the nature of the beast.
No, it's a really interesting experiment. I mean, it also just, it's definitely it's definitely not good for people who believed that it was going to come out in one way, but it actually came out another way. But to your credit, Robin, it was called the rug pull, and it was like full disclosure, like to everyone involved. I mean, that there were risks, right? We actually just spoke to Marguerite, coin artist, who I know you're also familiar with, and I mean, one of the ways of dealing with the pressure of launching tokens and launching these projects and having number go up, number go down, is to be very explicit with your community that this is a sandbox, this is experimentation. Do not go like all in. Like, don't take out a second mortgage to buy our game NFTs. So that can help. And I think I saw the videos when you were coming out the rug pull. It was like fairly evident that, I mean, this is like an experiment that's like an experiment. This could go horribly sideways.
Well, the thing is, I built it as a transmedia storytelling experience. So I did an episode of the Defiant, and in that episode there was a QR code, and if you scan the QR code, you then went into a Telegram group, and in that Telegram group there was like a week's worth of kind of mini episodes of something that was going on, and I had these videos where I was a face in a bubble, and I was barking instructions and doing weird stuff, and then I was handing out free NFTs, and then at the end of the week, I exposed the private keys to my Ethereum wallet, and I didn't set up a special wallet. I literally gave away the private keys to my own Ethereum wallet, and it had its history, it had everything, so it looked legit. And there was this wonderful moment, I think it was about 10 minutes, where people were like, huh? And I hid the keys in a code, so it looked, like people were meant to find it, but they weren't quite sure. And in that 10 minutes, people were just like, should we? And then of course they did. And once one person started taking coins away, they all did. And so I was just sitting there going, yeah. So the game was, could I persuade them to give them back? So I think basically what I was trying to mitigate here was most people, particularly kind of smaller players, when they go into these things, expect that they're going to get screwed. And so by doing this, I flipped it and I said, you were the ones screwing me. And so I was deliberately turning the rug pull idea on its head and exposing myself and forcing them to be the ones that pulled the rug. And then asking them to just really look themselves in the eye, because they've been on this kind of fun journey with me and they'd formed a little community. But once they did that and they crossed that line, it was amazing, the response. And over the course of the next 2 days, all but one of the tokens came back. And all I was doing was applying pressure through storytelling and through different devices to try and get it back. What happened was, with the final token, somebody in the group had then spoken to somebody else outside the group and told them, and asked them, what should I do? What should I do? And that person had gone in and taken it. And because it hadn't been part of the experiment and hadn't been mind fucked by me, I had no control over them. But I was proving a point here, which is, just by telling a good story, you can manipulate people and shape them to do what you want them to do, which in this case was do the right thing. And the dilemma was, yes, you had the keys to my wallet, which meant you could look inside, but taking the coins, that crosses the line. If you have a community fridge at work or a community stationery cupboard, you don't just take everything out because it's open, because you can. There is some level of respect there. So yeah, it was a fun experiment, and I think that's why when the thing ended the way it did, people were kind of disappointed, but also not angry, because they got quite a lot of value for their money, most of them.
Your experiments are so playful and fun and psychological. It reminds me of the person that sent little cardboard robots that tried to cross the United States, or just acknowledging the psychology of a busy city like New York. Somebody puts a wallet on a busy street corner that's loaded with cash, like $300 US, and they just draw a white circle around it, and then nobody picks it up for 6 hours, right? It's just weird things that we as humans kind of we fall into these behaviors and these patterns. So we will definitely get to more deeply stuff that involves your work at the Defiant and all the different videos you've done. You've categorized tons of crazy good stuff in the space, but I do want to ask just before we kind of move to the next section, do you feel as though doing your work at the Defiant, you're leaving some of these social token experiments or NFT experiments on the table? Because you obviously have tons of ideas here. Do you think that there's stuff that ideas, and you can talk about them now, hopefully somebody develops them or works with them, but do you think there's ideas that we'll miss if you're working with the Defiant for the next year, and not able to kind of explore all these opportunities?
Good question. The answer is no. The wonderful thing about the Defiant is, because we are a Web3 media company, it's almost our responsibility to explore these things. You mentioned social tokens there. I have a hard time with social tokens, if I'm honest, because I feel like the idea is correct, but a token is the wrong delivery mechanism. And like you mentioned with Marguerite, like the moment you have a token and it's tradable, those dynamics, they'll kill you. And they create so much headwind for what you're doing that it can be psychologically probably very difficult. I do like, things like friends with benefits where it's a very clear proposition for what they're doing. I still haven't figured that one out yet. I mean, yeah, it's funny when I did the episode on social tokens, people reached out and said, you should do one. And like, as a thought experiment, great. The reality of it, over 12 months, 24 months, could I see myself doing it? No, no, because I have enough on my plate already. However, for instance, a Defiant token and what that could be, that's an interesting idea. And I think once it's woven into the fabric of a community that is very aligned with what you do and how you do it, then that's fine. But I think we have to earn that first, and we have to make sure that Defiant, in all its touch points, really, stands for what we believe it should stand for. However, having said all of that, like there is no limit to what you can accomplish in this space, and I think the best rule of thumb for me has been 100%. Don't hide it, say it. Just put your idea out there and tell someone about it, because more often than not, someone will go, well, yeah, we could totally do this. And all they're waiting for is for the idea. And so, like with the rug pull, I came up with it in like an hour on a Saturday morning. And then on Monday, I pitched it to Jordan from Meme. He was like, yeah, we can do this. Like, how can we get involved? I was like, oh, wait, we can actually do this? It's like, you just got to put the ideas out there and then start to try and figure them out. So I'm very excited about the potential for VR. And there's one particular reason for that, which is that the Quest 2, the new Oculus headset, came out. And like already this thing has gone into the stratosphere in terms of sales. Tons of kids have this thing. The world, the metaverse looks like it finally might be coming to fruition. And VR is such an amazing experience because it's physical, it's immersive, and it's very social. And it kind of gets us past a lot of the bumps that we've had through the pandemic. It's connecting you to worlds beyond your imagination. It's helping you expand your horizons, but it's also getting you moving. And when you're playing table tennis with someone on the other side of the world, it's very immediate. And I love that. But, for us, how do we then build an experience in VR that is fun and you want to come back to, that can be educational, but can also be a forum for people to come and talk and meet? What I really want to do is try and get the moment that I release a video into a social event so that I can get people, let's say Insomnium, and we come and watch the video together when it launches, and then we can talk about it. That's cool. And it's available right now, It's super cool. And I know Near has a headquarters in Insomnium, so I know you guys are thinking about it as well. But it's, I think we're only just at the beginning of what that could be, and what was it Neil Stevenson wrote in Snow Crash, because that's where it all comes from. It's the metaverse. I have the damn book right here, right here, right here. People read it. It's awesome. So yes. Well, yeah, exactly. So it's right there. It's right there. So I had a big epiphany on VR at the end of last year, and I think there's so much we can do. But there's other stupid, crazy ideas, like another what if. Like, we make YouTube videos. YouTube videos make money. Not a lot of money right now, but if we scale up and we do well, could be more money. Could we sell NFTs that represent the dollar value of those videos and help people, become participants in our economy? Because then there's like a real, asset-backed NFT that represents the ad revenue that you can track in real time. It can have real value. People could collect these. You could sell derivatives on them, and it's real. And then people are participating. There's tons of cool stuff we can do. You just have to say, is it possible? And then someone goes, I don't know, but we can try.
What do you think are some of the frictions in the space that sort of hold some experiments back, like just in the broad categories like UX or any other areas?
Well, it's like gas price, obviously. It's interesting, talking to you guys about it, because you're part of the scaling solution brigade. It's where you're at. Nobody believes that these things have a place. You're building a bridge. Harmony was building a bridge. And I don't think anybody believes that that's a real thing. They're sort of looking at roll-ups and layer twos and all these kind of things. And like, well, actually, the world's a lot bigger than that. And when I watch like normal financial YouTubers who talk about blockchain because, it gets hot and then they just capture a piece of it, they're like, yeah, I invest in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like, I don't see why I would invest in anything else because Ethereum has all of the weight and has all the developers. No, they don't even say that. They just say everything's built on Ethereum, so I'm just going to stay there. That's a friction, the mental headspace for people to understand that a bridge can connect you to. It isn't just lower fees and speed. It's a whole bunch of other functionality. It's like we just have to do it and show it. And I think that's where stuff like what we do, which is broadcasting and transmitting messages and talking about things, can be of huge value to demystify it and actually get people excited about it. And it has to be in this kind of non-hypey way and just genuinely enthusiastic. But man, it's difficult. It's difficult. And UX is pretty good now, if I'm honest. Like, I remember using Ether Delta for the first time. That was one of the worst experiences of anyone's life. I mean, like the praying that your transaction went through and then realizing that you underpaid and that you can now sell for 3 times as much simply because the system fucked everything up so badly that you come out good. You look at where we are now, there's no, it's miles away. It's literally just, it's the standard things like getting on, getting in, and helping people understand what it is they're actually doing. Still a huge friction point. And I have friends who, want to get involved and want to get started, and then just go, but it's so difficult. What do you mean I can't do this and I can't do that? It's like, yeah, sorry. It will get easier, but from my point of view, I just don't see those friction points anymore because I'm so used to them. It's very difficult for me to kind of flip and think about it from another person's perspective. But yeah, I don't worry about friction too much. If I see a problem, I'm like, yeah, well, let's go and figure it out and then tell people how to do it, generally.
And how do you think overall about Defiant now, going into Defiant? What's the North Star for Defiant, and what's your area of, like, how do you delineate in terms of like what you cover, what kinds of stories you create, and what you don't create?
Good question. So the Defiant is obviously a DeFi-focused newsletter Web3 media company. And that's wonderful because DeFi it literally covers everything. And it will be bleeding into everything. It will be, intersecting with everything. So it gives us a very broad remit. I suspect I can't really talk towards Camilla's editorial perspective on things. There's, obviously we have to cover the most immediate stories and the breaking news and that kind of thing. What I tend to focus on is basics, giving people just simple, graspable communications about, even just how to use Uniswap, how to just get started on Yearn, very simple things. I think part of that will be, how to navigate a bridge, because I think the more we can educate people on that, the better, because it feels like once those pathways open up and they're smooth, should be pretty cool. Then, that's one tranche. There's another tranche, which is going to be about compelling founders to genuinely face off against each other in debates, what we're calling battles. So you could imagine, 2 lending companies coming together and really being forced to justify their existence in front of each other, which should be really interesting, because normally what happens is they go on a podcast and then they talk about themselves and it's yay. Whereas I want to see them face off, and in a friendly way. But, like the best content of the last few years was always like Nouriel Roubini versus, whether it was Arthur, whether it was Alex Mashinsky, that was good stuff. And you want to see that impassioned, spirited debate. So that's going to be another line. And then on the weekly shows, what I try and do is capture a slice of the zeitgeist. Try and capture a big idea that's going on, and then sort of cover it from lots of different angles, but do it in a way that is entertaining. Because like this stuff is so dry on its own, it's really dry. But being active in it is really fun. So it's just trying to find that way of capturing that fun, but also, making sure that the journalism is correct and that the facts are correct, which isn't always easy. But that's generally my remit, is to capture a bigger idea, or a bigger macro idea that cuts across a few different protocols. So I can do a broader sweep, because so much changes in a week that by the time I actually put that video out, if I'm trying to do the thing that happened on Wednesday, it's going to be out of date. So it's always just trying to take a broader view on stuff. And so that's generally my vibe on things.
And also, how do you think about the YouTube channel and also the rest of the Defiant audience? Do you see it as like there's a lot of overlap between your audience and core Defiant audience, or do you view it as two different audiences, kind of like what people consume as videos on YouTube and what people read in their newsletters?
Well, yeah, that's a deeply profound question, and the answer can only be found in analytics over time. You need like a year's worth of data to really understand all of that. But I think there is a core DeFi audience, which is an interesting one, because what you tend to find with the Defiant is that core audience is very core. And it tends to be founders, and it tends to be like hardcore users of DeFi, and they're very loyal. So that when you could say a video has 40,000 views, but of those 40,000 views, how many of them are actually really valuable? And I think even though our views are probably not, they're not as high as Ivan on tech, for instance. Respect the pump.
I've never tried this, but I wanna try an impression. You see the pump just keep coming. You have to respect the pump. If you don't respect the pump, other coins going to dump on you.
Hey guys, breaking news! You gotta see this. Respect the pump. Respect. So that's what I'm telling you now. Is you gotta. Yeah. Anyway, I could do that. I could do that. A daily video where I just talk crap for an hour.
We're all very happy you don't.
Yeah, no, and I can't do that. So I think that our audience that does watch is valuable. Obviously, you have to think about growth, and then it comes down to simply just like, what are people typing into search engines? What can we intersect with? And then I at every time, like, I just want to be able to look at the stuff I've made and look myself in the eye and say, I did as good as I could, and I tried to find an angle, and I tried to deliver a good product. But we have to grow the channel, and we have to grow, and we have to respect that there are people who are crypto intentionalists who own a bit but want to get into more DeFi ideas and narratives and gain some exposure to whatever it might be. So they're going to want a bit more helpful content, and then they're going to be the hardcore users who just want to hear the crazy story that they saw play out told, just so they can tell other people, oh, I was part of that. And so there's not just two audiences. There's probably five, and not all of them are on YouTube. So like we have a YouTube strategy, but there will be people who only are on Instagram, and there's going to be people who really want to see TikTok. They really want to see me dance, and I'm not going to do it. So they're going to be disappointed. But we're still trying to figure out if there is a place for us on TikTok. Instagram, definitely. And one of the other things that we can do that could be interesting is partner with another brand that is on Instagram and has that platform, but help them create content as well. And so the fun thing is, I don't think there's anybody else in our space that does what we do the way we do it. So at this moment in time, we occupy a little space all by ourselves. I'm sure that will change, but when our competition is Ivan, for instance, that isn't our audience at all. But we do look at his numbers and we go, guys, you have to respect the numbers.
They've got their own pump in terms of audience numbers. One question I had about audience, Robin, was, do you see, like, the Defiant is so technical in terms of, like getting really, really deep into what are these things, what are NFTs, what is DeFi, what are algorithmic stablecoins? These are really deep topics in our space. Do you see the Defiant covering, I guess, what I would refer to maybe as more introductory crypto topics, such as like, like seed phrases? What are they? What do they do? How do they generate a secret key that signs a transaction, or wallets, for example?
Yes. Well, we have DeFi 101, which is the kind of the more basic series. We are working on something at the moment with a partner that cannot be revealed. It's a secret on specifically those kind of questions as well, which are broader crypto ones. So stay tuned. I say no more.
That was quite a pump. I think we should respect it.
No, I signed an NDA, so can't say anything. But no, that was the plan. It's a numbers game, right? You look at the numbers and you go like, what worked and what didn't work. And the video that worked best for us was the one about meme coin. And the reason it worked is because we dropped it exactly when meme shot up in price and exactly when the NFT farming, NFT DeFi thing took hold. Just plain luck. But we knew that we were the only video that was talking about it, was a lot of heat, and it gathered traction. So being, trend jacking, as they call it, works. Now, if you're making content which is specifically designed to capture a question that people are typing into YouTube, it's soul destroying, because you're not capturing the zeitgeist or the spirit of the moment or capturing something that's hot. You are basically filling in gaps in a content roster. We still have to do it because it's a business, and we need to kind of be smart about what they call ranking your videos on YouTube. And that's just a strategy. We will be doing some of that. But again, like I said, if we do that, at least hopefully what you find when you find our videos is going to make you think, well, I want to see more of these. And you may hate me, and you may just dislike English people because of Brexit, which is fine. Which is why I throw in Scottish accents and American accents and different accents. I might put in, "Hey guys, respect the pump." Yeah, exactly. I cater to audiences.
The French NFT stuff was actually particularly eloquent. I really like that.
Yeah, no, next time it's going to be Tuvan throat singing. We've got to capture our audience in Mongolia, man.
Do you see any other creatives in a space that you see as inspiration, or do you feel like you're like one of the only trailblazers given how early it is?
I don't know. Like I said before, when I come up with an idea, I try not to look at references of anything, because I try to use I try and allow myself to come up with a thing that's never been come up with before. And I don't watch any other crypto creators, and it's not because I don't want to. I just don't have time. And the stuff that I do watch is, it's HBO, it's some filmmaker channels that I like that are talking about, specific pieces of technology that I could adapt and use. I don't watch other crypto creators, so there probably are some good ones out there, but I wouldn't know who they were, because I'd just try. If I don't want to be copying other people or trying to analyze their strategy and see what works, because I think we should just stay true to what we do, and if it's good enough, the audience will come. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, comparing our YouTube channel also, like I was thinking, like we should definitely, it's super early, but like it's definitely like would be nice to find somebody who is like just as you, kind of like entering the space. But yeah, I feel like it's too early. I haven't seen enough of that myself.
It's also really hard, it's like YouTube on its own is really hard. That having to come up with something new every single week is a grind. But then, if you want to come up with something creative that's memorable, that makes people go, "Oh, have you seen this latest one?" That's a challenge. And then also just the amount of knowledge that I've managed to kind of build up in just, in the last 4 years, and working for Harmony and seeing the insides of a layer one and how it works, and then what goes into that. I think it's invaluable. Even just really understanding what a bridge actually is, how it works, what permissionless and trustless actually mean in that context, and the trade-offs involved in all those things. There's such valuable lessons and knowledge to have, and to be able to kind of filter what I'm doing through that. It's very hard. It'd be very hard to find filmmakers that do all of those things, but they will be out there somewhere. So yeah, I understand the pain, and it's amazing how many people have contacted me and said, "We need you to tell our story. We need you to help translate what we do into, digestible, easy to understand content." It's like, yeah, no, I know, I get it, but I'm exhausted. I can't do any more of it. It's too much.
Are there plans for expansion at the Defiant, like basically expanding into, a bigger team?
It already happened. So Camilla had a vision for what the Defiant scaled up could be. And I think she very astutely understood that if 2020 was the year that DeFi blew up, like 2021 will be the year that crypto really kind of got a big lift and acquired some new users. And so she positioned accordingly, acquired some investment, and I was part of that investment. But there are other people, there's full-time staff on the writing side. We're bringing in more full-time staff on the video production side. So we'll go from a team of, 1, 2 to a team of 4, which means we can just do a lot more content. But, alongside that content, we really want to explore these other avenues like, broadcasting in VR, daily news updates, these kind of things. But again, with that same spirit, the kind of smartcastic, entertaining, make people laugh, give them something to remember.
Did we cover how you and Camilla met and how you discovered that you two had kind of like a synergy in your approach to explore the space?
No, we didn't. So the answer to that question is this, that after about 4 months at Harmony, I came to the realization that the most effective way I could help them was to go back to my roots and be a videographer again and tell stories through video. And so I bought a bunch of equipment and I booked in time to film with Harmony. But I also said, listen, if we want to reach a broader audience, we need to bring in other voices. And so I got a bunch of interviews with people across the crypto space, specifically in New York, because I wanted to have that perspective. So I talked to Pomp, I talked to Delphi Digital, and I talked to a few other people, and Camilla was one of them. So we went up to her rooftop in the middle of Manhattan, overlooking the whole city, and it was fantastic. And did an interview up there, and then it just rained, and I got rained on. And that was kind of how we met. And so I sort of pushed out some videos with the likes of Tarun Chitra talking about DeFi and her. And then, and then in the middle of last year, I just reached out and said, listen, we don't have a foothold in DeFi, but we would like to have a voice in DeFi. And I think by partnering up with you and doing what we call branded content with the Defiant, we could do something really cool. She said yes. And that's how it happened. And then, off the back of the videos and how well they did, and how, I guess the turning point was this. I went on holiday, and after the year that we'd had, I had 2 weeks to just refresh. And when I came back, I was like, I'm ready to go. And I guess what had happened was, like, being someone that did what I did, had no background in tech, trading, anything really, coming into a company like Harmony, which is very kind of bleeding edge, I felt like a total imposter. And I was trying to figure out where my place was and what my role was. And, I came back from the holiday and I was just like, I know what to do now, which is, instead of just telling the story, I've got to make it come alive. And so the first video I did after coming back from holiday was me getting bananas thrown in my head. And I just did this whole video where we riffed on bananas. And from that point on, it was just like, this is how we do this. We just look for that thing that will make people remember that. And then, after that, it was just, game on.
That's awesome. And last question I have is, what is the most exciting part of your job, and also what is the most challenging part?
So the most exciting part of my job is knowing that there is no limit to the ideas that I can come up with. That I don't have a focus group telling me that what I'm coming up with is wrong. And it sounds like a kind of playing the violin, poor creative can't get to do his ideas. And it's easy to point that accusation because, a lot of people never get to the position I was in where I had massive film crews, I had all the equipment I wanted, but the work was mediocre and boring. And I had all the good ideas just rubbed off it because once you get through that committee, there's nothing left. That's exciting for me. So this freshness to what I'm doing, the challenge it poses me to keep delivering stuff that has that quality about it, which is, could anyone else have made this? That's very exciting. It's a good challenge, and sometimes we don't meet it, but knowing that we can and that we could and we're capable of it, that's exciting. And that, the hardest challenge is very, very simple. It's just staying on top of what's going on. It takes so much effort just to make the damn videos that you miss stuff all the time, and I have some very key sources of information that I lean on, but tracking those and staying on top of them is very, very difficult. And you have to kind of avoid the temptation just to spend all your time on Telegram and tracking conversations because you won't get anything done. But you miss stuff and you miss the fine detail and the nuance. And it's very, very easy to get things wrong because of that. When you're talking about the difference between two types of algorithmic stablecoin, you can easily get that wrong. So that's, that rigor required is challenging, definitely.
That was really good. Where do people find more about Defiant and yourself?
Well, it's very simple. The Defiant.io, and then the world is your oyster. You can find me on Twitter. I am DIR Schmidt, and I'm trying to be more active on Twitter and respect the pump of my own videos. Pump them up. Oh God, I hate that. Anyway, but the Defiant.io is the place to go, and you can subscribe to the newsletter. Comes out daily, and it's a good digestible version of events. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be ramping up the video stuff a lot more, and I'm excited for this year. It's gonna be hard, but there's so much going on. I mean, it's like you can already see the heat, the excitement. And just in terms of the innovations that are coming out, every time I do one of these videos and I research it, I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. I don't know what it is, but it's cool. And then it dies, and then it comes back to life again. Never a dull moment.
Thanks so much for taking the time with us today, Robin. It's really a pleasure, and just absolutely like 10 out of 10 content you're producing. It's unbelievable. It's so much fun to share with everyone.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it. It's why we do it.
This is awesome. Thanks a lot.